Hi, baddies. Welcome back to another episode of Tara's Baddies Club. I'm excited today because this interview is a little bit different. This one is in person with my friend Jeannie, and I'm so excited to have her on today because we connected through a mutual friend, Linda. And Linda has a story that she's going to come on and share as well. We actually recorded the interview. I just still need to edit and do all that stuff because, you know, when you produce your podcast yourself, you edit it yourself, it's a lot of time and also a lot of money being put into it yourself. So, you know, I'm thankful for anyone that supports on Patreon and also just anyone's patience when I put podcasts out there. But we connected. She has a story about her son being murdered in 2018, Blaze Bernstein. And so she's going to talk a little bit about that. We're not going to get into too many details about that, but there is a 2020 episode that just came out recently. So I encourage people to check that out. Jeannie is in it as well. So she talks about that experience, other experiences with the media. And so we're going to get into her episode. So let's get into it.
Hey, Pep Talkers. We're back in the studio with my friend and fellow podcaster, Tara Newell.
Wait. Hold on. I think I'm going to interview you this time.
Oh, yeah?
Uh-huh.
Like right now?
Yes. Let's switch.
All right. Let's do this. Ooh, I like it over here.
Yes. So you're in the hot seat now. So
yeah.
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
Tara's Baddies Club.
Awesome. I've always wanted to be a baddie.
Yes, you are a baddie.
Yeah. I mean, I think I always was one, but I just didn't call myself that. But now I can. It's official.
Well, welcome, Jeannie. Thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so excited to have you on to share some of your story and then also talk about how true crime can be a nuance.
Yes, we can talk about that for sure.
Yes.
What do you want to start with?
So why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself that don't know who you are, and then a little bit about how you came into the world of true crime?
Well, I came into the world of true crime, unfortunately, through the death of my son. But that wasn't the first time that I'd been a victim of a serious crime. I was also victimized as a young person when I was in middle school. A stranger came through a window in our family home and attacked me while I was sleeping. And I was very fortunate that I was able to get out of that situation without being severely harmed. So that was my first opportunity to be part of the true crime. But at that time, and this was 40 years ago, my mom said, don't tell anybody what happened because you don't want anybody to know. So we didn't talk about it. Like, it just wasn't, crime back then was not something you really wanted to be identified with. I still don't want to be identified with it, but unfortunately, being identified with it is a way for me to get my son's message out. So I became part of this community when my son, Blaze Bernstein, was murdered on January 2nd, 2018.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me. And I'm so curious also about your story as well, because I don't know if you listen to my podcast, but I had an incident too where someone came into my window, picked me up, and they tried to bring me out the window. So when you told me about the window, I was just like, wow, that is definitely different experiences and different traumas, but so interesting. And I didn't report it as well. My parents actually didn't really take me seriously at the time. And because the person ran out the window.
Yes, that happened in my case too. I mean,
really?
The police knew about it. We reported it right away. But my mother did not want everybody to be talking about us. So she told me, she knew that there was going to be an article in the paper the next day. And she said, don't tell anybody that you were the girl that had the attack, because everyone's going to be wondering who it was that lived on our street that was attacked. And so I didn't tell anyone, and I had no therapy. We never really spoke about it again. And I just went on and lived my life. Didn't worry about what happened because I survived. I came out of it, and there were no marks, and nothing really bad had happened. I mean, essentially, I told the person that if they didn't get out of my room when I screamed, my father would come in and kill them. And he had a gun. And I talked about that gun. And even though the person that was in my room was telling me that they had a gun, I never saw one. So I just kept using that until he lunged at me, and then I started screaming, and then he ran out the window. So in a nutshell, that's what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me. And I'm curious to how even that experience has helped you or re-triggered you to process what happened with your son as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I ask myself that every once in a while. I think about that, like, gosh, it's so strange to be a victim twice of crime. I think that when it happened the first time when I was so young, it made me really afraid of men, especially men that looked like this man, because he was the only thing that I really remember about him is that he was middle-aged and he had a dark beard and dark hair. I couldn't tell you anything else about him because it was very dark in the room when it happened. They were never able to find the person, and no one ever told me that I should be concerned about that he could possibly try again. I wish they had said something because I never really thought about it. But I mean, if somebody, commits a crime and isn't successful, they may try again someday. And I'm so grateful that that did not happen. But there really just wasn't any talk about it. And then when this happened, I felt a little bit like let down. I think that this should happen twice. I mean, it's not like I've lived in bad areas or areas where there's a lot of crime. In fact, I've always lived in places that were nice places, really, with low crime. I mean, when that happened to me when I was a teenager, we were living in Palm Springs. When this happened to Blaze, we were living in Foothill Ranch and Lake Forest, both, nice places, really. And I think that I feel let down by the system that this stuff has happened now more than once to me. And I don't think anybody should be a victim of crime. I just feel like it's so absurd. I mean, we live in such a prosperous time where there's plenty for everyone, and this is an abundant world. Why are people hurting each other like this? Why are people taking things from people that they've worked hard for? And why aren't the people that are doing those terrible things, why aren't they working hard? And, and why is our mental health system, is it completely failed us that we aren't able to identify people and keep them from hurting others before they do? It just is a letdown for me. And it's not something that I usually really even talk about because there's so many things that came out of it that were positive, that I try not to dwell on the the negative aspect of this, which is these things shouldn't be happening. They really shouldn't. So I guess that takes us to the place where I say to myself, this is why we got to change the world. Something has to change here so that, you can actually live a complete life without being a victim of crime.
Yeah. I think that no matter who the person is, crime can happen to anyone, especially poverty, because you're more likely to be in those types of situations. But even if you have money, people want to unalive you over money.
Yeah. I mean, and look at in our situation, I mean, Blaze was unalived because he was Jewish and gay. So, there's no telling what the motivations can be of somebody that's doing something so hideous. It could be because they want your property, and it could be because they just don't like you.
Yeah.
You just don't know, in this world. So I have no control over people thinking that they have a greater right to my belongings than I do. And that's why they justify stealing. But when it comes to killing people because you dislike them or something about them is, that's something we can work on. We shouldn't be living in a world where people have the need, young people have the need to do things like that. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yes. So I think that your son's story is very unfortunate. These cases should never happen. But can you tell the listeners a little bit about who he was as a person and basically like some of the special things about him.
Yeah. Well, Blaze lost his life on January 2nd, 2018, because a former classmate was interested in becoming part of a hate group. And in order to elevate himself within that hate group, he had to take the life of somebody that was gay and or Jewish. And so he identified my son because he went to high school with my son for 1 year. They were in the same high school together, maybe 2 years, but they were in the same conservatory for 1 year together when they knew each other. And he matched with my son on a dating app because he was hunting for a gay man. That was his target. And so he posed as a gay man himself, and he tried to lure Blaze out. And he was also working on other people too. Blaze was not the only proposed victim. And sadly for Blaze, when Blaze was home for the holidays, he was an Ivy League student, 19 years old. He went to the University of Pennsylvania, where he was the editor of a cooking magazine called Pen Appetit. And he was also a scientist. He was majoring and taking classes in chemistry, biology, molecular sciences. He hoped to be a doctor someday. He was a great writer. He wrote brilliantly, and he had an amazing sense of humor. But the one thing that really sticks out about Blaze that people that know him will tell you is he was just a really kind person. He was just really a good person, and he wanted to improve this world for all of us, which is why, even though he loved writing and cooking, he knew that using his education to become a doctor or to work in medical research would be more fulfilling for him ultimately, at least as his bread and butter. And he knew that he could always cook and write after he, paid for all of his lifestyle, basically, paid for his life. So we lost a great person when Blaze was killed, not just, for my family, but for the world. So we decided to use that platform to keep his memory alive and to encourage people to do great things like he wanted to do.
I love that. And he sounds like an amazing person. And I wish I got to know him, but I'm thankful that I got to meet you. Unfortunate circumstances bring people together and bring the greatest people together, unfortunately,
Yeah, sometimes I guess it's like that silver lining of all of the terrible things that happened to Blaze. I still have a life afterwards, and it's not the same life. I would have had a very unremarkable life had this not happened. I would have been, I would have just continued to live in the suburbs and monitor my children from afar as they, continued on through their lives and have their professions and children and all of that. And I would have been very happy never being in the public eye. But when this happened, I felt like I had a responsibility, and it was very healing for me to use this platform that I had to encourage people to keep his memory alive. It makes me happy when I see people doing things in his honor. It makes me really happy, and I know that there is purpose in this life for me, even though one of my greatest purposes of seeing Blaze be successful is not part of my world anymore. I can still continue to feel like I have meaning.
I love that. And then you created a podcast, Pep Talks.
Yes, Pep Talks with Jeanne. That's my little passion project. And that also makes me really happy because I get to meet really cool people like Tara and other people that are making this world a better place. And I get to interview them, and we get to learn about what makes them tick and why they do the great things that they do, why they've picked that particular passion project for themselves. Like in your case, you're a true crime podcaster, but you're also interested in helping victims not be taken advantage of in this process, because it's very easy as a victim to be taken advantage of and to have your story turned into, a sensationalized mess that you see on the 6 o'clock news. And that's just not right. It's not fair to the victims, and it's not fair to their families. So I'm totally with you on that. And I really didn't even understand that until it happened to us, because as soon as it happened, I had some of the nicest people in victims' rights advocacy reach out to me and give me some very good advice on how to go forward.
So something I think you said that is interesting is you don't know until it happens to you. Can you talk about your experience with the media?
Yeah, when you have something like this happen that brings the media to your front door, you don't really know, who you should be talking to, what you should be talking about. And one thing that I learned, which is actually really important, is that especially as a victim of crime, when you talk to the media, you may know things that you have told law enforcement about the crime, what you know about it, that they don't want the perpetrator to know that they know about, because they kind of use it to play poker with that person when they are interviewing them and when they are collecting information and evidence. So once that gets out there and the perpetrator knows that you know about it, they then change their story to be in alignment with the evidence that's been collected. So the less that the perpetrator knows that you know, the better. And the only way that you can make that happen is if you do not talk about it with anybody except law enforcement. And that's something that was explained to me, but I wish it had been explained to me better. I think I did a fairly good job of not blowing it or blowing up the case because I was told by law enforcement not to talk about these things. Why? I didn't understand. At the time, I did not understand what the importance of that was, but that's what the importance I discovered is, because I saw in our case that the person that did this to Blaze, every time something was leaked to the media, whether by me inadvertently or by law enforcement, all of a sudden there was a new way of explaining that evidence.
See, that's why I always inform survivors, people that are going through cases, you have a time to speak. And when you go and talk to the media, they can spin stuff around. They can go and say this. They can use that in the court case. I was advised by many lawyers, and I never had a case because
he was gone.
And they just kind of were like, yeah, this is like a closed case. This is self-defense.
Okay.
And there was over 20-something witnesses. So in that case, it was a closed case and everything. But I was told, don't talk to media, don't talk to them, don't do this, because it could change your case. And I was also going to sue the Coronados where I was attacked at one point because the gate was broken. There was some certain security things that were not done correctly in my case. And that lawyer was the only lawyer. Well, I think there was another lawyer recently that won against the Irvine Company in a mold case. But before that, it was the only lawyer that has ever won against the Irvine Company. And he told me, don't put anything on your social media whatsoever. And basically told me I need to be silent until it's over. Would you recommend that for another survivor until the case is closed?
Well, that's a really great question. So there's a couple of things that come to my mind. Number one is, while you have the media's attention and if you need it, you've got to figure out a way to keep it, because in our situation, our son was missing. So we needed the media to help us get the word out, to help find him. So if I hadn't spoken to media, or if I had completely shut everything down, that would have eliminated the leverage that we had over law enforcement to do something that having the media on our side was helping us attain. In fact, I don't know, to be honest with you, if there would have been an all-out search for Blaze the next day if we hadn't threatened going to the media. I can't say for sure, because you hear about it all the time. People are missing, but you're hearing about it like in a, as an afternote, or maybe you'll see something in the newspaper about it like 3 days later that somebody was missing, but you don't actually hear about it when it's relevant and you might be able to find the person. It's very hard sometimes to get people mobilized to help you find your loved one that's missing. So we had to play the game. In terms of how much you should play the game, as soon as we knew what had happened to Blaze, we knew we did not need the media's assistance anymore. We didn't need it. But then we wanted it because we knew that if we had the media's assistance, we could use it to help us change the narrative, because the narrative that the family of the perpetrator wanted was a lot different than the narrative that we wanted, because he was claiming that he had been, in the beginning, the perpetrator claimed that the reason that this happened was that Blaze had wandered off into the wilderness that night, and he didn't know what happened to Blaze. That was the only thing he said, nothing more. Just he wandered off. I didn't know what happened to him. I never found him, and I went back and I looked for him, and I just couldn't find him. So that was the first story that he came up with. Well, that wouldn't be the story that we ended with in the trial in July. By the time we got to trial in July, he was claiming that he smoked marijuana that was so strong it caused him to pass out, and then he was sexually assaulted by Blaze. So we know that that's absolutely fabricated, but you can see how the story changed from the beginning where, I mean, if that had actually happened and he had been attacked by Blaze, I'm sure we would have known about that right away. But no, the story then was that Blaze had just wandered off into the woods. But as more and more evidence became clear over the course of those years, his story changed right along with it to try to explain why things were found in certain places, why there was evidence of blood, all over his car and in his house and on his things. And, like, how do you explain that if Blaze just wandered off into the woods? Well, you can't. So now he had to come up with a story about the attack because he knew there was no way around it with DNA evidence. So you use the media for your purposes because you need it. You need to have sympathy for your loved one who passed because their voice isn't heard anymore. They've been muted forever. Blaze would never be able to defend himself. So we were his representatives now. And we had to make sure that whatever happened, that the lies that the perpetrator wanted people to believe were not true. And we wanted to preserve Blaze's legacy of kindness. And how can we do that when people are accusing him of a sexual assault that never happened? So, this is why I say it's a very fine line with media, because if the media could have run away with that and said, and made that the sensational story, they would have. But we didn't allow that because we always made sure that our story was up front, that Blaze's picture was always up front. And that's why I gave so many interviews, because I would tell the news outlets when I gave those interviews that I did not want to see the perpetrator's face as the first thing when that story opened on their channel. I wanted to see my son's handsome, smiling face, and I wanted the story to be about what happened to him, not about what happened to this perpetrator. So we made sure that the narrative was always on Blaze's side and that his face was the one that was seen, because nobody wants to see the face of somebody that does ugliness in this world. Those people should not be celebrated. They are not heroes. They are, in Judaism, we call them drek. Okay. That's a Yiddish word for crap. So that's what he was. And we did not allow him to take over the media with his nonsense.
That's good. Well, I also think that in missing persons cases, it's really important to gain attention onto that case so that other people are looking, they're searching. And if there's just so much mystery with those cases, where if someone is seen across the country, like, it needs to be known and out there,
Yeah. And that's exactly what we used it for. It was very helpful. So the media can be your friend. When they were helping us get the word out, even on the East Coast, we were told by law enforcement, oh, Blaze probably just went, he could even be back east right now. Maybe he went back to school and just didn't tell you. And we're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But, if that's possible, then we need to get the word out there too, that if they see him, to let us know. So yeah, it was really helpful. You have to be able to game the media. Basically, you need to figure it out, because they can help you, but they can also really hurt you.
Yeah, so true. Now, what are you doing now to preserve his story, to preserve his memory, and to put his name out there?
We've done a lot of things over the last 7 years. I can't believe it's been that long. In the beginning, we used the Facebook page, which was designed to help us get leads. We had created this Facebook group, and we turned that into a Blaze It Forward group, which was then designed to encourage people to do kind acts for others and to report about what they were doing on this Facebook group. And it was really great. It was great to see that people were taking it seriously and doing nice things for other people in his honor. So that was wonderful. And that is still going on right now. You can still become a member of the group. And I think we're at 34,000 people the last time I checked. So it's been my family for the last 7 years of people that are there for us and on our side and trying to make the world better. So that's always wonderful. And then at the same time, we also created a website in Blaze's honor, which talks about his life, his story, And you can go on there, and you can also make a donation from that point to the Blaze Bernstein Memorial Fund, which is a donor-advised fund that's custodied here in Orange County for us to distribute to appropriate nonprofit foundations. So we do that. We've given money to many organizations over the last 7 years. And we've created endowments. We created a cooking school in Blaze's name at the Mirage Jewish Community Center here in Irvine. We endowed a real arts internship at the University of Pennsylvania for a writing student to be able to come out to California in the summer and work in the Los Angeles area with writers in entertainment. So that really can help a student who otherwise cannot afford to come here for that experience. So that is something every year we send at least one student here to California for that purpose. We have also created a college scholarship for Orange County high school students. They can apply for that every year. We give around about $5,000 to a worthy high school senior who is blazing it forward. And we like to know what they're doing to make this world a better place. So that's part of that. And then in terms of giving money to organizations, we've given money to CHOC, which is Children's Hospital of Orange County. We've given money to NAMI, National Association for Mental Illness, GLAD. We've given money to, there's just so many things. Radiant Healthcare, which is a healthcare clinic for people in the LGBTQ community here in Orange County. Tarbut V'Torah, which is the school, Jewish school here. Many schools, OSHA, we've endowed OSHA actually with money so that they can have one student attend every year in their conservatory, every year forever. So yeah, lots of good stuff. And we'll just keep doing it.
Wow, I am amazed because that is a lot of money that you've raised. Just trying to do the math in my head for all those people to come here, do writing experiences, go to OSHA. That's just amazing. Yeah,
we gave away a lot of money in this first 7 years, and we still have money to give away. So it's very. It makes us feel really good, and we're so grateful that people trust us to make those decisions about where the Blaze It Forward money is going. And we like to show people what we do with the money, where we celebrate people that are different. We are all over the place. We were marshals for the OC Gay Pride Parade this year, and I am actually on the committee that is putting together a gala for Radiant Healthcare, which is the clinic for the LGBTQ community here in Orange County. And that is that requires a lot of donation work in order to provide that for this community here. So I'm working on that. And I also find time to continue to do these kinds of giving back with my podcast. I get to meet a lot of interesting people and help them get the word out about what they're doing to make this world better for all of us.
I love that so much. Well, I do this part where I do a Patreon segment where we go into more stuff to talk about. I think it would be great to talk about mental health and healing from what you went through.
Sure.
But for the people that are dropping off now, is there anything lastly you want to share to them?
If you're interested in my podcast and hearing some of it or learning about who's been on it, you can check out my webpage, which is peptalkswithjeanne.com, and that's PEPP with Jeanne, JEANNE. And I'd love to have you check out my podcast, and maybe you want to be on it. I'm looking for people that are making this world a better place. So you can reach me through that website.
Beautiful. And where can we find your organization to contribute, or just even the Facebook page? That sounds fun.
Yeah, go on Facebook. It's Blaze It Forward is the group, and we require you to apply, and then we approve you, and you're in, and you can start posting there. And then if you want to learn how you can donate to Blaze It Forward, go on the blazebernstein.org webpage, and there's a link there. There's also a link from my website as well, the peptalkswithjeanne.com website. You can find a link there as well. And those links are going to take you to the Jewish Community Foundation of Orange County's website, where they are basically the bank that holds all of that money and they distribute it for us. So we don't actually ever have possession of that money. It goes straight from the bank to the organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a safe way to do things.
I think so too. Yeah. I trust them.
Yeah. Well, I've even had to hold on to money for donations. And then I'm like, please don't have anything come through my account where it takes that money out.
I know, right? Yeah. I never have to deal with any of that. The bank does that. So it's completely clean operation for me. So, and then when we're ready to give, we just say, give the money to, Tara Newell's Foundation for the Creation of Victims' Rights or whatever it is. And off the money goes to that organization. We never hear about it again. It's just, it goes there. So
Beautiful.
So yeah, that's an easy way to give if you're so inclined.
Yes. And just for a side note, my money, if it gets overdrafted, I always get it back. So that money goes to the donations.
Oh God.
I don't want people to think that I'm keeping it for my overdrafts.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be a good idea. But
yeah.
But at least you're giving. So,
Yeah.
and you're encouraging people to give, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, let's continue on to the Patreon.